So Chuck, as we've learned, we know that more than 1,000 train derailments happened last year in the U.S., and that averages out to about 3 every single day.
And for a lot of these communities, it is heartbreaking. I mean, the people we spoke with in Graniteville, the people we spoke with in Paulsboro, it completely altered their lives.
Absolutely. And I want to start by giving some context to what happened in Paulsboro. Everything really comes back to the bridge. And the bridge we're talking about here, the Paulsboro Movable Bridge, was more than 100 years old at the time of the derailment in 2012. And Conrail was aware about different concerns about its function. I did read through the National Transportation Safety Board report, and in there, Conrail Trouble Desk records showed that 23 bridge operating problems were reported in the year prior to the wreck, and 11 of those were reported during the month before the derailment. So they sent technicians out to try to see what was going on, and they couldn't find any specific problems with the bridge, so they decided to keep it operational. And the bridge you're seeing there now, that's what's currently there, and local news reports show that that was up and running by 2016. You know, I met with a lot of different people in Paulsboro who expressed frustration with how the accident happened. So it was a November morning and the light was red, so it indicated that the bridge was not prepared for any kind of train movement, but the conductor inspected it, decided it was properly locked, and then ultimately crossed with permission from a dispatcher. But of course we know the rail wasn't locked and misaligned once the train moved across the bridge, causing that derailment.
And when the residents see this in both these towns, when they know that both of these instances could have been prevented, it really is heartbreaking. I also had the opportunity to look at the NTSB report in Graniteville, and it said if the conductor was able to perform the proper review, they would have noticed this improperly aligned switch, which ultimately caused the collision, which led to the chlorine leak. And people there, you know, it's too late, right? At that point, the destruction's already been done. And again, it has totally taken the lives of these people in both of these communities and completely turned them upside down. And it includes everything from what had happened in the immediate aftermath and then the site cleanup. I mean, talk about inspecting homes, replacing what was destroyed.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the first responders. In Paulsboro, the hub of information initially really was the local volunteer fire department. That's where everyone that was evacuated was sent to get different vouchers for food and clothing and hotel stays. And that's also where the NTSB had their press conferences initially. And I did have a chance to walk around the department with the current mayor. You know, he comes from generations of firefighters. He was actually the deputy fire chief at the time of the derailment. And, you know, he says there really is a lack of training about how to respond to train derailments carrying hazardous materials. You have to understand, again, this is a local volunteer fire department. It's very small. And he says that they were essentially improperly protected. None of their gear, he remembers, was replaced after exposure to vinyl chloride from the train wreck. They were just told to wash it. And meanwhile, today in East Palestine, we know the fire equipment underwent a decontamination process, and Norfolk Southern committed $3 million to reimburse and replace the gear.
And we both spoke with firefighters. The gentleman I spoke with, Phil Napier, former fire chief, now current county councilman for that area. He says right after the incident happened, Norfolk Southern said they'd replace things, but what they were replacing it with was used gear. That's what they were trying to do. And he put his foot down. He said, that's not going to happen on my watch, and was able to work through it. But every step of the way, this has been frustrating for these folks, and many of them have made it their mission to, you know, let other people know, especially with what we're seeing in East Palestine, of, hey, this can happen to your neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why the current mayor of Paulsboro, Gary Stevenson, is really frustrated watching everything unfold right now in East Palestine. It's really kind of reignited his passion for rail safety, brought everything back to the forefront. And he says that he's kind of ramping up training and reviewing protocols just to kind of make sure that Paulsboro is prepared to handle things differently if this were to ever happen again. And he's really interested in sharing his insight directly with the mayor of East Palestine, talking to any kind of government or railroad official that will listen. He's been sending different letters out. He did have some meetings with some politicians in New Jersey, so he's hopeful some change could come from all of this. But, you know, his main concern, something that really struck me that he shared, is he's concerned that nothing is really going to change for the better until one of these derailments results in death. But of course, we know, you know, the train derailment you covered happened more than 20 years ago, or nearly 20 years ago, and people did die.
Yeah, he's going to be frustrated when he reads that or sees these stories. 20 years ago, 9 people died in Graniteville after what had happened. train derails, chlorine leaks, spreads throughout the town. 9 people die. And then there's so many people afterwards that have dealt with these lingering issues, everything from COPD, anxiety, emphysema, PTSD. I mean, it runs the gambit from physical ailments to dealing with mental trauma from all the things that had happened. And the amount of people that were originally evacuated, 5,000. So it killed 9 people, and it really killed, opportunity. It killed their careers, and it killed wildlife. I mean, it really, really affects these communities.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how impacted they still are now that 18 years have gone by. And we do want to let you know that we did reach out to both Norfolk Southern and Conrail to ask some specific questions about these incidents, and we did not hear back. Yeah,
and if you've missed any of our stories, they've aired here on air, but they're available online. Our series Off the Rails, Life After Toxic Train Wrecks, it can be found on our website, SpectrumNews1.com, as well as the free Spectrum News app.